Welcome, everyone. We are happy to have you join us today for a webinar that's all about turning challenges into triumphs in the world of voice monitoring. And if to be more specific, we are going to talk and show how to reduce the time to fix by up to 80%. Today's webinar is live and scheduled for about 30 minutes. It is not a typical voice monitoring lecture. We are bringing you real life stuff, not just theory. We'll share three real life, very different from one another case studies, but they all have two things in common. They all show the importance of data, and they all prove it is possible to reduce the time to fix. Let's do a little housekeeping before we start. We have a large audience, so all participants will be placed on mute. Videos will be turned off. If you have any questions along the way, don't be shy. Put them in. We'll address them later. Without further ado, let me welcome our speakers for today, Eyal Ullert and Michael Wallbaum. Eyal has 30 years of experience in the telecommunications, mobile, VoIP, and broadband industries. He's one of VoIP Future founders, and he now leads our sales and marketing. Michael is VoIP Future's Director of Product Marketing. He has 30 years of expertise in the telecom domain from various angles: product manager, consultant, and researcher. Guys, the floor is all yours. Enjoy, everyone.
Thanks for the intro, Lilach. Before we get to the heart of the matter, let me just first set the stage regarding VoIP Future and our main product, Crystals, because we'll see a lot of screenshots later on. So VoIP Future is a voice monitoring company founded in 2007 in Hamburg in Germany, and our mission from day one was to enable premium voice service quality and allow our customers to excel in the voice quality to provide premium service quality. We have a unique technology for assessing, aggregating, analyzing, and visualizing the voice quality information. And
Michael, 1 second, please. Yishendo, you didn't bring the screen share? Yeah. So, yeah, now we are in the About Us screen share.
Okay. So everyone sees my screen now? Okay, I'll just continue. So in the end, it's all about data on the voice service to help you with troubleshooting and monitoring. The technology is applicable to all standard voice services. So from voice over NR or over VoLTE, IMS, and enterprise services. Product is available in the cloud as well as on-prem, and over the last 15 something years we've collected a large installed base with CSP around the globe. So our main product is, as I mentioned, Crystal. It's a passive monitoring system monitoring the voice service. It consists of probes distributed around the network, processing mirrored traffic from core network elements. Typically, the probes are placed around SBCs. They process the traffic in real time and then send quality summaries to a central component called the Crystal Manager. And this is used for post-processing, aggregating, visualizing, storing, and exporting all the data that we will see in a sec. Okay, so let's turn to our cases. Actually, Lach said in the introduction we have 3 cases. I've brought 4. And all of these cases have in common that they basically illustrate how, with the right data, you can actually save a lot of time and effort. And if you see here the orange case, 3 days instead of 3 months, these are real stories. They took place as we'll discuss them, and so you see that this 80% is in some cases even underestimated. let's start with the first one, very short one, but very typical. And in this case, we got a phone call very early on in the days of the company, and the caller was requesting a POC, and the key sentence in that phone call was, "My monitoring tool says everything is fine, so why are my customers complaining?" And so we came in, set up our system, and had the same calls side by side in the incumbent system, which showed, here's one example, good quality in both call directions. So from the A party to the B party, the MOS was 4.0, and in the opposite direction it was also 4.0. And but this was a case where the customer actually complained. So let's have a look at the crystal data. And it looks in the one direction the same, but in the other direction we have, instead of 4.0, we have a minimum MOS of 1.4, which is a huge difference. A MOS of 1.4 is terrible, and even though the average is quite okay, it actually means that the customer was right in complaining because there was an issue. So and basically this is typical in the sense that we see this very often, that incumbent tools, because they don't look at the actual RTP traffic, just provide a huge, or there is a huge gap between the measurements or the data that they present and the reality, and it really helps if you come closer to what your customers are thinking about you. El, what's your take on this? I mean, like I said, we haven't heard this kind of story. We've heard it multiple times over the years, and yeah, what's your take?
So I actually remember this case. That's only show how old I am in the company. So, and in general, this case was quite interesting from the aspect also what's behind. Customers are complaining. If your tool is now saying that everything's fine, pretty much the investigation on this particular tool is over. And now customer and the service provider needs to invest a lot of time and efforts to maybe download some pickup files, do the recording in the first place, start to analyze that. And when you have a tool with a data that is precisely show you, and there is plenty of more data that we chose today not to go over the details, but when you have already the confirmation that there is serious the complaints coming with also serious backup from the tool that's showing the customer degradation was happening during the call in the right time. Now with this data you can go behind and start to do the troubleshooting, and from here to from the confirmation customer complaint to the troubleshooting is quite fast, and this saves a lot of time and your customer facing when you're looking. So yeah, this was a very interesting case, and since then we actually had still today we have a lot of cases where when you're using we didn't talk about it and we will not talk about technology too much. I will just mention it in high level. When you use time slicing and you're not averaging, if you see in our tool also when the 1.42 is circle and just beside it is there is a 4. When you average the call and you're looking at call as a whole and you're not looking on a set of time slicing within the call, you might lose the point where the degradation occurred, how severe it was, what was the length of the this degradation, and the impact on the user experience. Yeah, this was actually quite interesting case from long time ago.
Yeah, I would like to add that actually, I mean, like I said, we do see this very often, and the main reason is that many other tools rely on RTCP being available on data from network elements, or they do some sort of averaging, or only look at the last 5 seconds or whatever. So in the end, it is really important to look at the entirety of the stream and at all packets that make up this the media transport, and we'll see a lot of or some more examples of this later. So, for example, in the next story, where which is actually quite funny, just from the customer reaction. And again, this was a POC, a large tier 1 CSP, and we were called in and for testing and set up a probe at one key site, at one POP around the SBC, and we were monitoring traffic to other sites. And there was one site that really showed some bad traffic, some bad results. You see that at the bottom. Some red, some yellow, some light green. We're actually would be expecting everything in dark green and perfect quality, but there were issues here, obviously. And when we drilled down, we saw that the RTP streams between the two pops suffered from a lot of issues. You see on the right, so each line corresponds to one RTP stream, and it's typical traffic light pattern. So you would hope for everything green, but there is a lot of red and yellow, and without me explaining too much, you see that there is a lot going on. And also basically affecting all the streams all the time in some way. I mean, there's some time correlation you see with that red line going from top to bottom, but in the end, it's sort of like a persistent pattern. So when we shared our insights with the CSP, the operations team was sort of like really defensive, going, "Oh, it's our core network. We don't believe you. We would have noticed." And luckily, we had some more data to back up our initial findings, and in the end, we could show that this is quite an unusual pattern that you see. So if you look up here with the red and green and yellow traffic lights, you see that only packet loss indicators are active. All the rest is green. There's no jitter, just packet loss in different forms. You see that also here at the bottom with the packet inter-arrival time. It's 20 milliseconds for all packets, everything fine, but a lot of consecutive packet loss events, a lot of critical loss density events. So, like I said, packet loss of all kind, but no jitter at all. And that pointed to a physical issue with dust, with cracked fibers, defect SFPs, something along these lines. And well, in the end, they did their own checks and eventually found out that actually the link was indeed defect, and the problem was fixed. And yeah, I think Eyal, you were in the room when this sentence was dropped. "We don't believe you." I think they're a long time and happy customer by now, right?
This is correct. So just imagine the situation. You're sitting on a POC on a mobile carrier. You're trusting your data very much so. Also, a company in that time was quite established with many customers already. And you show the data as it is. There is a packet loss, and it's coming there. We see it. It's nice. Just do something about it. And then the service provider got mad, and we were like, really now at that time very shy, getting a bit red. What's going on? So here, this is a classical a situation when one, you don't have any data, none of your elements is looking on such of what we call network performance from voice services. You need to defend your position quite fast, and they could not even believe that two core network elements, quite close physically to each other, even
50
had a
kilometers. Yep.
situation. Yes, that even they could have a situation where there is a packet loss. And now this is also more interesting, and this is something that I saw along the years. This effect is not major in the sense that it's only affecting thousands of customers among hundreds of thousands of millions of customers that this mobile service provider had. So now just imagine that there is not enough complaints that is coming and able to pinpoint exactly where it is. So now you have a situation which is, as I said, in my life in the company, I saw quite often that there are a situation affecting thousands or dozens of thousands of customers and still not noticeable by the service provider, and he's not able to give remedy in a timely manner. So this was a very interesting case. Like Michael, you said, this is a long-lasting customer now for us, and he's very happy from and we evolved with him to the new use cases. This started as IMS, we moved to Volti and others use cases that they use.
Right, right. So maybe let's go to the next case, which actually inspired basically the title of this webinar in how to reduce the time to fix by up to 80%. So in this case, we literally solved a case in 3 days with our data, which a task force of vendors and incumbents worked for 3 months on, and couldn't find a fix. And actually, this specific scenario is one of the hardest topics that operations has to deal with today. It was about one-way audio, and we've done entire webinars just on one-way audio because it's always technically an interesting topic, and again, if you without the right data, then it is really tough nut to crack, if impossible. So let's have a look at this one. So this dates back to September 2013, and the CSP onboarded an enterprise customer with a SIP trunk or an IPPBX. I don't remember quite. With an IPPBX, of course. And the enterprise complains more or less from day one that the calling party can often not be heard. So there is no obvious pattern, and it doesn't depend on the time of day or who's calling who or whatnot. And in the end, they established a task force of the involved vendors, including Cisco and Acme, and back then Acme, and also monitoring incumbents, and on top, the customer is asked to report on the incidents. And you see here on the right part of those statistics, which went on for weeks and months. And so from December 12th to December 20th, you see sort of around about 15 to 20 cases, so at least once a day, if not multiple times. And in the end, whatever the task force did wasn't successful, and so we got pulled in, and it was really obvious from the beginning, at least when you looked at the reported calls, that there was something fishy, in the sense that there was, for every reported call, there was a second unexpected stream. So you got one coming in, you got one going out, but there was a second one going out from this enterprise, and with the same start time, with the same duration, and also with the same destination and port number. And it turned out that this was a bug in the Cisco call manager, that in some circumstances involving a CTI solution, but doesn't really matter so much, one call was ended, but the RTP stream kept going on, and it contained silence. And we dubbed this silent stream zombie stream, and it just was being sent by the call manager until it rebooted, so it never ended. And if there was a new call going out to the same media gateway in the same port, that zombie stream would slip through the firewall or the SBC, and then at the receiver side, I mean, the receiver doesn't know what to expect, so he just locks on to the first stream that he gets from the specified destination, and this is typically the zombie stream. So the signaling was perfect. Also, the actual proper speech goes out in both directions, but the receiver just picks the wrong stream because he gets a choice of two, and that actually leads to this one-way audio situation. And now the key point is, from a data and from a monitoring perspective, is that these zombies are invisible to conventional tools. Maybe you can do a trace and see this in Wireshark, but most monitoring tools on the market just don't see these zombie streams because they only look at RTP within a call context, and the call context of these zombies was long gone. So there was just RTP, nothing else, and basically this is also in many other cases the secret to success. So, but we'll get more on this in a second. El, how did you do you remember this case? It's 10 years already.
Yeah. So
Again,
this
we're
case
old.
is yeah. This is actually I want to take it from a different angle. This is a case where you see a mobile service providers, one of the largest in Europe, with tens of millions of customers, and he's connecting here behind. There is a very large enterprise, and the use case from the engineering is they have. How to say, not only the obligation but also all the attention for management, how fast they can solve a problem. And with the right data, with the right tools, they could solve the problems really fast. Now, you onboard a major corporate to your organization. You promise to deliver the best services, and finally, you end up yourself with customer what they hear. They don't know one-way audio and those kind of things. Just I can hear or cannot hear the other party. It doesn't matter if it's now a drop call or one-way audio. They don't care so much what's the technical phenomena behind. Now, you don't have the data. Calls are dropping. You don't hear the other party. Customers start to complain. It's going all the way to the management, and the operation tool don't have the right tools to obtain and to basically do the right troubleshooting. With the right information in hands, you could identify, and here in this case was the ability to track that there is two streams running at the same time, and then to understand what's the impact on the receiver side. And from the data point of view, once the data is available, the way to troubleshoot was quite fast. And for me, the main take is that operation team often needs to deal with important cases where either they were aware about them before or they were not aware about them. And now, once the data is available, they need to react quite fast when all the eyes of the company is on them. And this was quite a good case where we were able to help and get a lot of credit from the customer.
Right, right. But I mentioned that this ability to actually analyze RTP outside of a call context is also important in other scenarios. Not that just you took the business aspect now, but it's actually also a commercial thing when you think about the importance of monitoring encrypted customers where you don't see the signaling but only the RTP, where you monitor media gateways and you don't have relevant signaling at hand, or where signaling and RTP take different routes. So this ability is actually key to many scenarios, and in this case it was key to save an important customer and stick with him and keep him on board. Let's get to the final case, and this one is probably one of the most complex and crazy cases that at least I've ever dealt with, and it's actually also about one-way audio, and it's called "How a Radio Station Interfered with a Government Agency." I was thinking to title this case "How a Radio Station Impacted German Unemployment," because it was a government agency to find work for unemployed, but that would have maybe gone a bit too far. So let's have a look at the radio station. The radio station is a customer of a tier 1 service provider. They use the fixed network services, and this radio station is ranked top among in the German radio landscape, and they have a wide audience also because they run very effective promotions, and they worked on this for years. And one thing that I didn't know about how the audience or the reach of a radio station is determined is that at least in Europe this is done twice a year through an agency or a company that does the actual measurements, so how many people are listening to a radio station at which time of day. And obviously the more you have as a radio station, the more then you can take for radio ads. So this is commercially really, really important to get as many customers as you can during those measurement campaigns. And in February 2018, for the radio station that we're now looking at, the listeners were glued to the radio with a simple game. So there was some riddle, solve it, call in and win 50,000 euros. So that was quite an incentive. Now the whole problem, the whole thing that kicked off this story here is that the listeners were asked to call a phone number which was actually explicitly excluded from use in such mass calling events and such games. So the service provider started getting complaints that people couldn't get through, couldn't establish a call. And when they looked at the signaling data, they saw that there were severe degradations 5 times a day. Now you can guess at which times of day the listeners were asked to, to call in and solve the riddle. Very precisely, it was a 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 12 noon, 3 in the afternoon, and 5 in the afternoon. And so many customers were affected by this, obviously not just those calling into the radio station, but everyone that was hooked up to the impacted switch. And basically, technically, they also have 503 service unavailable, so it was complete overload. Meanwhile, at a government agency where hopefully no one listened to the radio but worked, but they got it was a huge agency, 100,000 employees, and in around the same time of the radio game, they started noticing some severe issues with the phone service, and which could be easily described as one-way audio and call drops. And so they just started opening tons of tickets with the CSP and getting increasingly frustrated, obviously. So at the CSP, 2 independent teams, because they didn't know that there was a link, 2 independent teams set off to work. Team Radio investigated the switch overload. They realized that the radio station, that those overload situations were caused by calls to the same number. They knew it was the radio, saw that the number was not configured for this, and told the radio station to use a different number, and case closed, problem solved. In parallel, the agency team screened the reported issues. They were, as often, thinking, this is something that is in the customer's network, in the agency's network, but they also wondered about this clustering of tickets for one-way audio at 9 o'clock, at 12 noon, and 3 in the afternoon, etc. So there was something unusual going on. So, but suddenly, once the radio station changed the number, there were no new tickets. So case closed. Well, because the link wasn't established, we were called in to conduct a deeper investigation, because obviously this major customer of the CSP was worried, why this happened, will it happen again, and so on. So basically the investigation yielded that, okay, a massive amount of call attempts creates a switch overload, service 503 unavailable, completely clear. At the same time, also the media gateway got overloaded, or a set of media gateways involved, and that led to the problem that calls could not be established. Okay, that's sort of in the line of 553 unavailable. But more importantly, that the media gateway started sort of getting confused and started sending out non-standard RTP streams, and that caused one-way audio for some. Now, why some? And why was the agency hit so hard? Why were, basically, there were a number of other customers also hooked up to the media gateway, but only the agency really complained loud about the one-way audio. So the reason was that these confused media gateways started to do a sender restart. This is how we call when the sequence number does not increase one by one with every RTP packet, but as shown here in the picture, basically it's in the middle of the stream, the sequence number resets. And as we see here, this is a picture from the actual incident. The media gateway does this with all streams at the same time. All streams are getting the sender restart, and the sequence numbers are starting from 1. And you see that there are some longer calls still going on, but you see that also some are terminated rather quickly. So it doesn't affect everyone, and that's basically the problem, because the standard RFC 3550 does not define how a receiver should react to such a sender restart, because in the end the receiver uses these sequence numbers to detect packet loss. So if there's a gap in the series, the receiver knows, okay, your packet was lost, let's do some packet loss concealment or whatever. But unless there's a wraparound at when the number is overflowing, there is no indication what you should do when in the middle of the stream the sender restart. So the question for the receiver is always play out the audio or ignore the packet and wait for the one with the right sequence number. And now the government agency was hit so hard because they were actually having all the same device from one specific vendor, and those devices were just very picky and decided to ignore the packets even though they received them. So that caused the one-way audio, and that's why the agency was hit so hard. And that's also the reason why data is really important in this case, because you might have recognized this in Wireshark, but having a tool that automatically indicates this to you is actually quite helpful. So, Eyal, you agree that the indicators were key in this story, and actually also in many other cases, which we couldn't touch today.
I told you, Michael, what can I say now? No.
Yeah, no, say no. I mean, just make it interesting.
No. Indicators become the core competence behind. So how to troubleshoot faster is by the tool already sort out the troubleshooting information, and one of the best way to do that is by the indicators. Just imagine today a standard restart is an indicator in the product and many others. This case, which is not too long ago, I know at least dozens of additional cases of conformance, also send a restart in a different network, how and where the user, let's say the user handset or whatever end equipment is using, may or may not play the audio, and this will result immediately, like you say here, one-way audio. This is an important aspect anyhow, to look on the RTP, see how much you're conforming to the standards. Somebody needs to benchmark. This is one example out of so many that we have that providing the right data and importance, I guess, to the customer. Right.
I would, if if we wrap up now, also looking at the time, there's any questions,
There
maybe.
was one interesting question. You didn't have the time to look at it. Maybe you can look now in the screen. This is an
Re-
interesting case.
Read it out.
So how to solve one-way audio in Jabber as Jabber is not detecting the microphone 3.5 millimeter jack. So it's not immediately in our domain. We are in the what we call the passive bit point monitoring. We are not looking on the end equipment. However, I remember cases of broken cable of the headset. This one you remember as well. It's like
Yes, we'll actually have it next time. I mean, this is yeah, yeah,
this
definitely.
is
This
quite
is
funny one.
yeah, no, yeah. I mean, let's tell the story now. Well, yeah, I mentioned it. So, there was like one of the very first customers, literally one of the first customers. He, after getting confidence in the data, even though, like Eyal said, we only monitor, or the crystal tool can only monitor what it sees, or what it, like, even what it doesn't see. But basically, when one of his customers complained, he was working at a bank in operations. When a customer complained about bad audio quality, and the crystal tool said everything's fine, no jitter, no loss, perfect moss, whatever, then he just basically sent out a new cable for the Cisco phone, because he knew that there was some issues with the lot that they received, and without comment, he just sent them a new cable, and that typically fixed the issue. So maybe this would also be approach here in
And
this
I
case.
think here this is the link. The link is that when you have a network monitoring that is looking on really every single packet and packet flow information, you're able to derive a lot of useful understanding about your network from once, but also on the UE from the other side. And you should at least know what you can expect when you're placing a call, what type of RTP, how it should look like, and now when you don't see that, you get some clues. But that's it. This was a single question that came, Michael. So
Okay.
maybe
Well,
we can start to wrap up.
yeah, let me just close that by, in preparing for this webinar, I realized that there is many, many more cases that we can and actually also should talk about, because some of these are really entertaining, some are just, very technically interesting. And so we decided to make this a little mini series, and we already know what the next webinar will be titled. It will be titled "You'll Never Walk Alone," and it will it will be about how much trust you should put in network element vendors, because I realized that there was a whole bunch of cases where we did a huge investigation, and the customers were busy with for a long time, and in the end, the network element vendors were saying sort of, yeah, we knew. We knew about this, we just didn't tell you. So this will be an interesting one. If you like this webinar, we don't have a date set yet.
Yeah,
So
and
if
there
you
was
like,
Michael, just one more question came, and
yeah,
also mindful of the time.
yeah,
The question is, can we identify the call loop with VoIP future? Guys, maybe here you can also see our website, and we are very attentive for questions. We're happy to take it offline. Call us. No obligation. We're happy to share our experience with you on a regular basis, and yeah, hopefully in some of those cases we can also help in that. Thank
okay,
you very much, Michael, for your lovely presentation.
yeah. Thanks everyone for coming, and hope to see you next time. Bye.
Thanks.